I'm Charles Daniels. For years, we've been taking you to villages like this and showing you the heartbreak of families whose only mistake was being born poor. They need your help. And for only 39 cents a day, you can provide water, food, and medicine for these people. Just 39 cents. That's less than a small cup of coffee, but it can make all the difference in the world to the people of this village.
Ask for more.
Sorry?
Ask for more money. Why are you starting so low?
As you can see, these villagers are desperate for your help, so don't hesitate. Pick up the phone.
Yo, what they shooting?
Commercial or something.
A word?
Dial the number and send over 39 cents. That's all we need.
Start higher!
I know, right?
39 cents may not sound like a lot, but it can mean so much to these families.
It's not even a round number. Like, if he said $1, I could see how he got there.
Yeah, but you know they always trying to take away a penny to make it sound like less.
I get that. I'm just saying, why not start at 99 cents?
39 cents. That's all these people need to survive. And they'd be so lucky and appreciative to get it. So for the price of a cup of coffee.
Who that?
Talk about all they need to send is the bare minimum to keep us alive.
We're not asking for the bare minimum. This number has been decided by very educated and caring people who can save your lives.
How?
How?
How you gonna save our lives with only 39 cents? Because I'm trying to do the math in my head, but I just can't see it.
39 cents is plenty.
He keeps saying 39 cents. Why you keep saying 39 cents?
For the price of a cup of coffee.
Why it can't be the price of an Arizona iced tea? They 99 cents.
Because it's not the price of an Arizona, it's gotta be coffee.
It don't, though.
Plus, coffee is way more expensive than 39 cents.
It's 39 cents. You know, for a starving village, you people have a lot of energy. Maybe people should send their checks someplace else.
Oh, so you asking for a check? Yo, why would you ask for a check?
You settle for a check.
It's got to be a check, okay?
It don't, though.
Here's your coffee and your change, Mr. Daniels.
Perfect timing, Valerie.
Hey,
I
white
love
lady.
it.
Hey, how much was that coffee?
It doesn't matter.
I bet you don't even know what country you in.
I do know what country I'm in.
What country you at?
What country you at?
Africa? Oh! All right, look.
If you want to see this cheap-ass white man again, you better send us $200 cash right now. Don't hesitate.
Well, good morning. This is Lou Benninger. And you're welcome. You're welcome to be here. This is where White Lives Matter. And we are happy to provide 39 cents. People can survive on it. And the station is where Africa is a country. So if you don't know where you are, you're lost. We got you. And this is KMYC, The Patriot, 1410 AM. And we're happy you're here. We're talking live today. I got Leon, who may get pulled off the show because his late name sounds like Robert E. Lee. And so, they pulled an Asian, Robert Lee, off a football game because he sounds too much like the famous Southern military leader, Robert Lee, who we talked about last week. So we have a Leon. So I don't know whether he'll make it through the whole show today. We may have protests out here. But we also have the return of the Wiki Man, Santos Vigil, sitting behind today, who when Leon moves south, which doesn't sound good nowadays because of his name, Leon, he's going to be down there in one of the A states. Are you going to Arkansas or Alabama? Arkansas. That's a bad sign when you got the name of Lee. So here we go. Just a thought. So we got plenty of guys back here running the board. So the weak link is the guy that's talking to you right now. But if you want to call in, you can at 742-5555 with a 530 area code. This is a pro-choice station, so if we feel like we need to abort the call because it's inconvenient or not a proper time in my life, or or you're not the right persuasion, the right gender, or we think there may be something wrong with you, we'll abort you. So you can also catch us on KMYC Radio. .com. If you're out there in a fringe area and we're coming in and out, you can go to KMYCradio.com and click on the Listen Live button, and hopefully the streaming will work. I don't know how it works. Most of life is a mystery to me, and so is streaming. So sometimes it works, sometimes it don't. So, we're happy if it does today, and supposedly, even if you're in outer Slumbodia, you can listen loud and clear there. So, I want to read you a letter that was sent to the Commissioner of Football, since we're coming into football season. And Colin Kaepernick, like a case of the flu, you just wonder when it's going to go away. Just like diarrhea, upset stomach, lost my appetite, I have a headache, my bones ache, my muscles ache. When is this going to be over? So, supposedly, this Marine colonel named Jeffrey Powers wrote this letter to Roger Goodall, and I read it. I've read it a number of times, and I just said, I like what it says, and it just makes so much sense to me. So let me read it to you. And I just saw on Facebook, I don't know whether it's fake news or what, that the Raiders just picked up Kaepernick. Now, that is a freaky thing to me. But I don't know whether that's... How do you even know whether things are true anymore except what the Bible says? So Jeffrey Powers, Marine, says, I've been a season pass holder at Yankee Stadium, Yale Bowl, and Giant Stadium. I missed the 90-91 season because I was with a battalion of Marines in Desert Storm. 14 of my wonderful Marines returned home with the American flag draped across their lifeless bodies. My last conversation with one of them, Sergeant Garrett Mongrella, was about how our Giants were going to the Super Bowl. He never got to see it. Many friends, Marines, and Special Forces soldiers who worked with or for me through the years return home with the American flag draped over their coffins. Now I watch multi-millionaire athletes who never did anything in their lives but play a game disrespect what brave Americans fought and died for. They are essentially spitting in the faces and on the graves of real men who have actually done something for this country beside playing with a ball and believing they're something special. They're not. My Marines and soldiers were. You are complicit in this. You'll find players for large and small infractions, but you lack the moral courage and respect for our nation and the fallen to put an immediate stop to this. Yes, I know it's their First Amendment right to behave in such a despicable manner. What would happen if they came out and disrespected you or the refs publicly? I observed a player getting a personal foul for twerking in the end zone after scoring. I guess that's much worse than disrespecting the flag and our national anthem. Isn't it his First Amendment right to express himself like an idiot in the end zone? Why is taunting not allowed, yet taunting America is okay? You fine players for wearing 9/11 commemorative shoes, yet you allow scum on the sidelines to sit, kneel, and pump their pathetic fists in the air. They are so deprived with their multi-million-dollar contracts for playing a freaking game. You condone it all by your refusal to act. You're just as bad and disgusting as they are. I hope Americans boycott any sponsor who supports the rabble you call the NFL. I hope they turn off the TV when any team that allowed this disrespect to occur without consequence on the sidelines. I applaud those who have not. Legends and heroes do not wear shoulder pads. They wear body armor and carry rifles. They make minimum wage and spend months and years away from their families. They don't do it for an hour on Sunday. They do it 24/7, often with lead, not footballs, coming in their direction. They watch their brothers carted off in pieces, not on a gurney to get their knee iced. They don't even have ice. Many don't have legs or arms. Some wear blue and risk their lives daily on the streets of America. They wear fire helmets and go upstairs into the fire rather than down to safety. On 9/11, hundreds vanished. They are the heroes. I hope that you're high-paid protesting pretty boys and you look into that mirror when you shave tomorrow and see what you really are, legends in your own minds. You need to hit the road and take those worms with you. Well, I just feel like I wish I could have written that or said that. And I just thought, isn't that amazing? And I thought of these guys playing football as employees. I've been employed by numbers of businesses over the years. And I do have First Amendment rights. But when you go work for a business, you can't say anything you want. You can't do anything you want, or you will get fired, right? Isn't it fascinating that they will fine someone for grabbing their crotch, but they won't fine them or fire them for disrespecting the country that makes it possible and makes it safe for them to make hundreds of millions of dollars? Isn't it odd? Or they'll fine them for cussing at a ref, or for bumping a ref, or for arguing with a ref, or for doing some kind of bizarre dance in the end zone. Isn't that all their First Amendment right to assault people and act like a gangster or a pervert? It's amazing to me how we, so many of the professional athletes in the country are basically criminals. They beat their spouses, they beat their girlfriends, stab people, are disrespectful to law enforcement, and yet we coddle them and praise them on Sundays. You wonder why the country is in such a state. It's because a lot of us who claim we're conservative and patriotic, we don't really put our actions where our rhetoric is. And we support and cheer people that actually mock us and mock the country we live in. So we kind of get one. I remember somebody said when we reelected Bill Clinton, the country is getting a reflection of who they are. And you think, oh, let's see, Bill Clinton raped women, molested women, had sex with multiple women, cheated on his wife. All kinds of people died in his wake, 30 or 40, died violent deaths, and yet we reelected him. So I guess we are kind of like that. Isn't that interesting? Well, I wanted to talk about, in relation to this, about our state of our community. And you know, our community is only as solid and honorable and full of integrity if the people, the individual people in it are that way. And particularly if the people in leadership are that way. So as I've been taught by my friend Dave Bryan over the years at Church of Glad Tidings, all organizations, families, churches, everything rises and falls on the quality of leadership. And of course that's biblical because the Bible says when the king is corrupt, the people suffer. And how you wonder, how do they suffer? Well, you know, they suffer in lots of ways. They suffer from the injustice of the judicial system. They suffer from the waste of their tax dollars that are forcefully taken from them and deposited with people that lavish them on themselves. And they hide their doings from the very people they claim to serve and lie to the people they serve, their constituents, by saying, oh, well, I'm here for you. I'm a public servant. But really, they're there for serving themselves. And you can see it in the lavish salaries they pay themselves. It's not that we get to choose what their salaries are. No, we don't get to choose the salaries of any of our people. Supervisors, council members, assembly people, senators, they all just say, I think I'll have a raise. And then they raise their salaries. And then they hide things from their constituents and say, well, we don't really need any oversight or vetting on how we operate because you can trust us. Honestly, politicians are just like the general public. We're all sinners, and we all have a tendency to greed and to dishonesty. You know, you ought to look up Exodus 20, everybody, and read the 10 Commandments. If God had to put that in writing, if God had to put all that in writing, 10 things you should pay attention to, then certainly we need a monitor and watchdog over everything we do as a government because they're handling bajillions of dollars. It's interesting, the 10 things that God thought most important was not to lie and not to steal from people and not to want other people's stuff, including their wives and husbands, and not to go having sex with other people. But those very things, if you just took 10 things, now we have thousands and thousands of laws. In fact, California legislators, they come up with 800 to 1,000 laws a year, new laws to keep us all in check, but they don't really follow them themselves. And so just those 10 laws or 10 commandments or whatever you want to call them, 10 principles, our leaders in our counties of Yuba and Sutter, I know other counties are listening out there, you have the same problem. I'm just more familiar with over here. I'm going to be talking about Butte County in a second with this Sutter Butte's flood control situation. But I just want to talk in general about the lack of honesty and morality in our counties. It was we're just a few days past the 2-year anniversary of a woman dying in Sutter County by the name of Sarah Matthews Easton. She's a wife of Aaron Easton and a mother. And when she died on August 16th, 2015, the appropriate emergency response people came to their home. And by county ambulance, law enforcement. And so they did the typical investigation when somebody dies. And the approach is at least what detectives tell me and coroners say, they always look for any harm or unusual circumstances that may have occurred before they just accept the fact the person died of natural causes, even if the person is hanging from a rope, even if the person dies of a gunshot that may be self-inflicted, even if the person dies and maybe there's pills all around them. They don't always assume it was self-inflicted. They look first to see whether maybe somebody did this and staged it. So since that time, for the last now over 2 years, Sarah Easton's death has been an unsolved case. It's an open case. Sometimes coroners tell me, because of my work with trauma intervention, and we have questions because we're working with the families, sometimes they will conclude that they can't conclude anything. For instance, a young boy hung himself out in Sutter County one day, youngster, and they couldn't determine whether it was an accidental hanging or he did it himself. So they concluded, they just put on the death certificate accidental, or they put undetermined. But for 2 years, the case has been open, which I think probably is troubling to Sarah's family, that there isn't a conclusive report. My understanding is that the Attorney General was to look at it, but that's a problem right there, as I'm talking about the morality of our justice system, because Kamala Harris, who is now a senator from the state of California in Washington, D.C. She's one of our 2 senators. She took Barbara Boxer's spot. At that, when Kamala Harris was starting out in San Francisco when she was 29 years of age, she took up a sexual relationship with Willie Brown, who at that time was 60 and becoming mayor of San Francisco, the first black mayor. And just amazing things happened after she took up with Willie Brown. Willie Brown was a married man. She all of a sudden got appointed to one commission after another, earning $70,000 a year, which wasn't even a full-time position. Kamala Harris ended up being the Attorney General that would have been over this case because it happened to the wife of a law enforcement official. But nothing's been done. The last time I talked to the police chief of Yuba City, he said, Lou, it's just an open situation. We can't talk about it. It's an ongoing case. I thought, well, how ongoing is it going to be? How many years is it going to take to close a case? So here's one of the problems, and I'm going to get into a discussion here of the news in the Appeal Democrat that happened this week, but we need to take a break, according to Leon.
Does CNN stand for Can't Notice News? The liberal TV network refuses to report truth, facts, and history without filtering it through a warped anti-Trump lens. Case in point, in the immediate wake of Thursday's jihad attack by truck in Barcelona, CNN's Wolf Blitzer and national security correspondent Jim Ciuto linked the shared tactics of the Islamic militant attackers in Spain with the murderous white nationalist moron in Charlottesville, Virginia, who struck and killed a female counter-protester last weekend. There will be questions about copycats, Blitzer intoned. There will be questions if what happened in Barcelona was at all a copycat version of what happened in Charlottesville, Virginia. Blind man Blitzer pretends no one has ever driven a vehicle through a crowd of innocent people before Charlottesville. And he assumes idiotically that people around the world are as singularly obsessed and focused on Charlottesville as he and his network are. Newsflash, ninny. Vehicular jihadists murdered 84 people in Nice, France last July. Another driver for Allah ran down and killed 5 people in Sweden. Muslim extremists mowed down 12 people in Berlin, 5 at Westminster Bridge, and 8 in the London Bridge truck attack last summer. At Ohio State University, Muslim refugee Abdul Artan was the ram and stab jihadist who struck and injured 11 people on campus last fall. And long forgotten is the motor jihadi at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, Iranian-born Mohammad Reza Taheri Azhar, who attempted to kill students in the campus square with his Jeep to, quote, avenge the deaths of Muslims around the world. Muslims driving under the influence of jihad are responsible for dozens of attacks on Jews in Israel. ISIS leaders and al-Qaeda have urged followers for years not only to take up arms, but to take up the keys to the nearest vehicle to wipe out infidels. If you are not able to find an IED or a bullet, then single out the disbelieving American Frenchman or any of their allies. Smash his head with a rock or slaughter him with a knife or run him over with your car, one Islamic terror leader helpfully suggested. But hey, Wolf Blitzer and company, don't let reality get in the way of your fact-free propaganda. The C in CNN stands for crap weasels.
Yes, we hear from people like Joe and Norberg that extreme poverty has declined more in the last few years than ever before. But those people only just made it above the poverty threshold, and they're much closer to extreme poverty than to middle income. They could just as easily slip back. Dead wrong. Progress has been even greater than that. Pew Institute took a close examination of the years 2001 to 2011, and during those 10 years, 669 million people rose out of extreme poverty, defined as $2 a day. Meanwhile, slightly more than half of that number, 386 million people, rose above the level defined as middle income, between $10 a day and $20 a day. So the global middle income population almost doubled in just 10 years. That's incredibly important because that's the level where historically and traditionally people can start to invest in their children's future and in their education and really begin to demand social reforms and democracy. And that is happening right now. The poor will not always be with us. The middle class will.
All right, welcome back. You're listening to Lou Benninger's Live with Lou. And we're here the last few times. We're going to have Robert E. Leon Lampkin with us. And we're wondering whether he's going to be able to survive down in Arkansas with all these statues being torn down. Anybody named Lee is not going to be able to get a job down there. Hold on to that thought, dude. He's feeling bullish, so across the glass. Well, we're talking about the moral cave-in Sutter County. And we were talking about the death of Sarah Easton and the fact that it's never been resolved. What happened to her? And the thought was, did she take her life? Did somebody take her life? So in the investigation that took place, there was all kinds of oddities about it, and people began to get interviewed, and the police began to find a swingers, some swinging activity going on. If you don't know what that means, it means that people have sexual relations with other folks other than their spouses. And so they began to investigate that one, just looking at all the options, like how did this woman die? And we need to look at all the options to figure out other people that may have been interested in her or had interactions with her. And so at that time, even people like Amanda Hoppers, the district attorney, the new district attorney at that time, her husband was called in. So when we were going through this in August of 2015, there was also a situation going on with the sheriff's sergeant or captain, McElfresh, Lewis McElfresh, who was also a part of a married man, also a part of having sex with multiple people, adults in the community and employees of Sutter County, and he was farming his adopted daughter out to have sex with other people. And McElfresh actually ditched a case where a Sutter County bailiff was having sex with one of the attorneys from the attorney's office, district attorney's office, Kim Webb, who later left the district attorney's office. You could just see that the moral downfall of the county was spreading. You remember that prior to Amanda Hopper being elected, that Carl Adams, the previous attorney for over 30 years, had a reputation for not only taking care of cases that involved the East Indian community, say if people were connected to Dedar Baines, Dedar could help them get rid of their problem, even though he wasn't an attorney, just by his influence over the prosecutor, Carl Adams. And we also found out that Carl Adams was having relationships with women, even though he was married with kids himself. It just seems like there's a epidemic of immorality in the county. Also, one of the supervisors was repeatedly accused of having sex with underage girls, but never prosecuted because of his family's friendship with Carl Adams. So you kind of see a rampant, out of control habit that's happening throughout the county of people being in power that have the morality of an alley cat. And if you're going to lie about relations with other women or men while you're married, what else will you lie about? So not only did we start with the revelations of Carl Adams, but this week, Jason Parker, who has had a illustrious law enforcement career, beginning with 6 years with Yuba County and I think about 10 years or more with Yuba City, and then now he's been with the DA's office. He was dismissed this week, put on administrative leave after being sort of the Clint Eastwood, the Dirty Harry of the area, dirty being some of the politicians that don't like him snooping around. He was noted, highly regarded as a Net 5 agent. Then he went to Yuba City PD and worked in the detectives and began to look at the cold cases. Cold cases are unsolved cases that they haven't given up on, but they've kind of come to a dead end. They don't know where to go from here. They've kind of pursued the evidence they have, but he looked at the cold cases on gang shootings, Norteño and Cedeno gang shootings, and he began to rework them and began to solve them and got prosecutions and sent people to prison that had killed people. He had enough of that notoriety to where he was sought out by Amanda Hopper, the new district attorney, to come over there. And no sooner did he get over there that he set up a first ever sting of perverts, sexual predators that were interested in having sex with 9, 13, and 14-year-old girls. It wasn't just a district attorney office effort, but it was a multi-agency effort that was very successful, I think, in arresting and prosecuting somewhere around 40 individuals. Last year, in 2016, since Jason Parker has got to the Sutter County DA's office, not only has he collected some of the top cops in the area to join an investigation team, but they probably set a record in the amount of prosecutions they accomplished and investigations they processed. For that, all of a sudden, things went sour in the last few months. in the DA's office. And the question is a little fuzzy, but there are some leads or ideas on what happened. I'd say many of the people, not everybody voted for Amanda Hopper, but I think many people hoped that she would be able to erase the disgrace that Carl Adams brought to the community by lying. By the way, when he was investigated by the Yuba City Police Department for when Carl Adams was accused of arson, the investigator that they sent was none other than Jason Parker. And Jason, knowing that he was going up against the district attorney, who had served for over 30 years, Jason contacted the Attorney General's office and asked, could I record him? And the Attorney General's office said, yes, you could. So he secretly recorded the conversation. Carl Adams denied having sex with Sarah Garibay. And then when Jason said something like, well, what would you say if I said to you that we've already interviewed Sarah Garibay and she says you had sex with her? At that point, Carl Adams admitted to the fact. He later lied to the Appeal Democrat, saying that it was all just a big mistake, and Jason misunderstood him, not knowing that the entire thing had been recorded. Carl Adams was later tried to have his name erased from the suspects of burning down Sarah Garibay's house. Thankfully, the Yuba City Police Department said it's an open case. You were named as a suspect, so your name remains in the file as a potential suspect if we ever can put together the rest of the evidence. But he ended up calling Jason Parker a liar, even though Carl Adams was the liar. Carl Adams was a corrupt district attorney. So fast forward then to now Jason Parker finds that Danelle Stylos, who's the head of Community Development Services, is fraudulently stating where she lives. And she said that on various government forms, which is a crime. Getting a concealed weapon permit, registering to vote, etc., etc. She was required as a part of her job to live in Sutter County. The supervisors knew that. The county administrator knew that, and they were complicit in ignoring, because, you know, when you're in government, you create the laws, but you don't feel like you have to obey the laws. Isn't that interesting? You prosecute the little people, but you think you can just ignore the law because you're so important. So supervisors and county administrators and county department heads think they can just skip the law whenever they want. So when Jason Parker then arrested Danelle Stylos, supervisors like Jim Whitaker and others blew a gasket. How dare he arrest one of their department heads? And they wanted to try to get her out of it. Something to think about, right? In other words, the people that run the county live by a different set of rules than you and I, who have to pay the taxes and obey all the rules. Otherwise, we'll get cited, etc., arrested, booked. So recently, Brian Hopper, who was interviewed regarding the Sarah Easton death, because the deputies were trying to figure out what happened, or the officers, what happened to this woman. Maybe he would know. So it's interesting when a person like Jason Parker gets in a position that knows a lot about who's doing what in the community and who's violating the law, and actually had gone down to Los Angeles to be trained by the Los Angeles district attorney on political crimes, maybe people got afraid of Jason Parker. Maybe he knew too much. So recently, it's just amazing how wherever you look, there's sexual issues going on. It's fascinating how we just can't keep that in the right lane, but we got to bring it into the job, and we got to have all these conflicts. So now there's talk that there was a relationship between one of the investigators and the district attorney, not Jason Parker, as Anu Chopra lied about. Anu Chopra was an attorney in the district attorney's office that was caught lying in court and fabricating evidence and was canned. Now she's suing the county, and she started to throw a lot of stuff against the wall, seeing if it would stick, and accused Jason Parker and Amanda Hopper of having a relationship, which is not true. But the office, the district attorney's office, did become abuzz with a relationship between another investigator and the district attorney. And that came to Jason Parker's attention because he is the chief investigator and all other investigators work under him. So he's responsible, just like when I worked at Glad Tidings, I had a team of people that worked under me, and I needed to keep things in check, in line. And then other people were over me who kept me in line. That's the way it works, right? And so Jason went to the investigator and said, hey, wait a minute. The talk is this and that. That ain't going to work here with you having a relationship with the boss in the office. And then he went down and talked to Amanda Hopper. And since that time, things deteriorated where they once had a glowing relationship with an all-star team of investigators and everybody working together and prosecuting one case after another. All of a sudden, things unraveled, and Jason was reassigned. Even those investigators are over at the old buildings around 2nd Street. Now he is located over on Civic Center Boulevard, a couple miles away, and he's not allowed to come to the office over there. So now, finally, he got a couple of attorneys who notified the county government of Sutter that they were going to be filing a lawsuit for their abuse, the county's abuse of Jason Parker, his employment there. And as soon as he filed that, the county then said, well, they sent sheriff's deputies. They sent Deputy Butler and Deputy Sampson in to remove Parker's gun and badge and dismiss him and put him on administrative leave. Not only was he removed to outer Slombodia, where he couldn't actually manage his troops because he didn't have any access to his computer or the files, except that basically in the middle of the night or early morning hours. Now he was eliminated totally and humiliated. And yet no charges have been stated. Now it's interesting because in the early 1990s, I went through a similar situation on the Yuba County side with Dr. Joseph Cassidy, who was the health officer for Yuba County and the jail doctor. Now they have replaced Dr. Cassidy, who retired from health department and then left the jail. It took 2 doctors to replace 1 doctor that was doing all that for 25 years. I want you to just hold that thought. And in government, you fire those type of people. You fire high performers like Jason Parker and Dr. Cassidy, and then you hire 2 or 3 people to replace them. That's government for you. Incompetent people are promoted high-performing people are discarded or eliminated. They show up other people too badly because of their poor performance. So Dr. Cassidy, it's interesting because Dr. Cassidy, after 2 or 3 years of making the headlines in the Appeal Democrat, who specializes in never getting to the bottom of anything, they won't allow their reporters like Harold Kruger and others to get to the bottom of anything. They rein them in. So all they do is he said, she said. After a couple of years of harassment, investigations by the state of California, Bureau of Narcotics Enforcement, the grand jury, Dr. Cassidy in Yuba County filed the same type of suit that Jason Parker looks like will file regarding his employment. But all during the suit, he continued to do his job as the head health official and the doctor of the jail. No one fired him or put him on administrative leave, even though he was filing a lawsuit against Yuba County for abusing him and harassing him while an employee. Dr. Cassidy ended up prevailing in that suit, getting paid $300,000 and some by the county, and kept his job. Now, it's interesting to me that there have been no charges brought against Jason Parker, and yet they put him on administrative leave. He can't do his job. So you think, oh, well, you might think if you're a novice, you've never heard of this, that's automatic, that's what has to happen. No, it isn't. Dr. Cassidy kept both jobs. He actually doing the job of 2 doctors, and no one replaced him. The supervisors didn't fire him. The CAO didn't fire him. That's who would have to fire him. But in this case, before he's even got any charges, he's put in an office to make it so impossible to do his job, the garden variety cop would have quit. That's what the idea was. But he wouldn't. And he didn't. And he began to communicate the best he could and do the job the best he could. But they made it impossible. And that would include Amanda Hopper, County Administrator Mitnick, and County Counsel Gene Jordan. One of the problems when things come out, like I don't believe this will ever go to court because the county can't afford it to go to court. There's going to be too many skeletons roll out in the depositions. There's going to be too many relationships that are compromised by immorality that will come out in the depositions. There's going to be collusion and dishonesty and unethical behavior on county officials' part that will come out in the depositions. And so what will happen here is the insurance company will settle up with Jason Parker. And they will settle up even though recently Gene Jordan, the county council, arranged a panel of community members or bureaucrats to discuss the Anu Chopra case and their evidence, all the facts of the case. And they asked this panel whether or not they should settle with Anu Chopra, the attorney that was fired, who now has a suit against the county, or should they fight it? And 10, they took a vote, and 10 said fight it, 4 said settle. Now it's interesting. I think what will happen is they will settle with her, even though the majority said not to. Why? Because they don't. The government does not want stuff to come out in court to show who they really are. In the case of Sarah Easton's death, that if that gets brought out in a court discussion, That will embarrass a lot of figures that are running departments in our 2 counties. It's going to be a deal breaker for a number of people because of their immoral behavior. You know, it's not against the law to have sex with a bunch of different people when you're married. It just doesn't wash well when you're the head of a department in the city or a head of the department in a county. When people think you're this and that, and you've been portraying yourself as this and that, but you're really doing something totally different. So that's why the Sarah Easton case is going nowhere. That's why the Anu Chopra case will probably go nowhere, and that's why the Jason Parker case is not going to go anywhere, but we're just going to dish out the public's money because we can. We're going to take a break here. Our first hour is up, so hang with us, and we'll just keep on going.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here, because I was just in Las Vegas, so I need the money. I lost a lot of money. I really did. I mean, I get them back at the buffet, don't get me wrong. $9.95 all you can eat. We'll see who wins this friggin' hand now, won't we? I do believe I have blackjack. I was at the prime rib counter going, hit me again. The buffet manager was horrified. You should have seen him. He looked like a deer caught in the headlights. Get the prime rib back in the kitchen. Finally, they just gave me my money back. Here's your $1,000. Get out! Actually, they have a buffet in Las Vegas. It's called the Oz Buffet. It's the Wizard of Oz theme, and it's a buffet. You walk up, and it's the Emerald City, and it's an all-you-can-eat buffet. I ran to it. You're out of the butcher, out of the doctor, out of the night. Step into the sun, step into the light. Prime ribs and pork chops and scampi, oh my. Prime ribs and pork chops and scampi, oh my. You know, I talk about buffets not because I'm a big guy. No, I'm actually writing a book, Around the World in 80 Buffets. And in my research, I found that there are some foods that shouldn't be all you can eat. Like Chinese food shouldn't be all you can eat, because you get hungry again. I don't know what it is. They put something in it. They must. Because I order takeout, they're always real happy. Oh, he's gonna be back. I give that big boy 1 hour.
All right, this is Lou Benninger. You're listening to Live with Lou. We're in the second hour, talking to you from The Patriot, where white lives matter. And you can dial us up if you want at 530-742-5555, but we might abort the call because we're pro-choice out here. So we were talking about the meltdown in Sutter County that's been going on for a number of years, and we just can't seem to get the right people in office. We replaced Mr. Jim Arkins with a guy that had been kicked to the curb because of lying and hustling money for his kids' teams down in Ventura County by the name of Scott Mitnick. And we hired Danelle Stylos, who had had issues in the previous city she was in. We just seem to hire folks that are flawed. And we hoped that once we got rid of Carl Adams, that we'd have a fresh start. And just a year or so ago, 18 months ago, we thought we had an all-star team at the district attorney's office, where before, under Jana McClung and Carl Adams, we had a nest of immorality. And that was when Elizabeth Pollard, who worked there in victim witness, sued the the county for sexual harassment after she divulged that money was being misappropriated, taken out of the victim witness funds, and spent in the district attorney's office. The county quickly settled with her after she was represented by Elisa Ungerman from Sacramento. So on and on we go. People one after another suing the county, getting fired. And so nobody is wanting people to make it to a deposition to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So this week, not only did Jason Parker have his gun and badge removed and be placed on administrative leave, yet no charges have officially been told to his attorneys. But another woman, the person who handles all the money and keeps track of the budget, is essentially the CPA or the accountant of the district attorney's office, a lady by the name of Marissa Garamore, who had actually spent years working for the Auditor Controller's Office under Robert Stark and then Nate Black. She applied and got what she looked at as an advancement, being able to run the finances of the District Attorney's Office. She had a 12-month probationary period, and right before she completed her probationary period, she was dismissed this week. Now, that's interesting because there seems to be accusations floating around that the budget submitted by the District Attorney's Office to the Board of Supervisors is not an honest budget. So getting rid of Marissa, who I've met once but don't know, but she has the highest marks. She gets the highest marks from people like Robert Stark, Rhonda Putman, Nate Black, all three from the auditor's office. And from what I understand, she's a highly appreciated and liked person in the district attorney's office, but was dismissed by the district attorney. The Board of Supervisors is aware that there are concerns about the district attorney's budget because the budget asked for more money to do the type of work that Jason Parker did, but nobody's doing that anymore. In fact, the place is in disarray. The article in the Appeal Democrat this week said new turmoil. The headline said new turmoil in Sutter County DA's office. Chief investigator threatens to sue. That is exactly correct. The rest of the article kind of goes all over the place and doesn't really help you much. But certainly there is dramatic turmoil. Investigators from law enforcement agencies are having a hard time tracking down either McClung or Hopper, according to them. That's bad news for the citizens of Sutter County. One, we're losing money and expertise by the people that have been let go. Number two, when criminals are not prosecuted well, they go back on the street to carry on their work. So it's a sad state of affairs. The supervisors have always proved to be incompetent in terms of sorting this out. They will say, well, she's an elected official, or in Carl Adams' case, he was an elected official, and they really don't have a comment about stuff. But they do have to approve the budget, and they have to approve hiring positions, and the amount of positions allowed. Excuse me, I have a scratch in my throat. So they do have a play, and they are the ones, as I told Jim Whitaker one time when he explained to me that when I was asking him why they wouldn't make a statement about Carl Adams' debacle, the district attorney, he said, well, what would you want us to say? And I referred to him as leaders of the county, and he said, well, he wasn't a leader of the county. And I thought, I thought supervisors actually were the representatives of people to oversee or supervise the comings and goings in county government. Why do we need them if they're not leading? So I don't really expect much from them, even though they have to approve the budget and they have to sign the check or approve the payoff of people like Anu Chopra, Jason Parker, and now even another fellow named Francisco Cervantes has an issue where he wouldn't sign off on some financial items in the district attorney's office. He may be filing a grievance. And maybe Marissa Garamore doesn't have a right because she was just on probation. So it's a sad state of affairs, and we'll see how it's all going to turn out. But it doesn't sound too hot to me. Now, this whole let me just speak for a few minutes about the Sutter Buttes Flood Control Agency. It's probably boring to most people. Flood control. Names like SABUFCA or the Advisory or the Assessment Oversight Committee or Advisory Committee, the Citizens Committee called KDAC. It's like, oh, geez, all these alphabet soup names of committees. It's boring, boring, boring. Lou, why you talk about it? I'm talking about it because when there isn't oversight in government, there is corruption. People can't keep their hands out of the money. It's like mom's making chocolate chip cookies, and as soon as she turns around, some kid's got his finger in the batter, right? And he's wanting to, like, dip in before it's time. And so when hundreds of millions of dollars are flowing through an agency and they're taking it above the taxes, they're assessing over 30,000 pieces of property in Sutter and Butte County and bringing through, and they're going to give some people that are unelected, but they're appointed, over $200 to $300,000 or $200 to $300 million to spend. And then they say, oh, no, you can trust us. I think when somebody says that, I think that's all the reason why we shouldn't trust you right there. Now, just yesterday, I noticed this headline: Chief Obamacare Architect sacked after fraudulent billing investigation. Did you know that? Do you remember the guy that was in charge of Obamacare, creating it? The brainiac from MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, the doctorate, Jonathan Gruber, Gruber. He was caught on film saying that we're all stupid, and their goal was to confuse us to the place where they could, remember that? Where they could just get Obamacare through and discombobble everybody. Instead of being transparent and clear and honest, they did the very opposite. What kind of person is Jonathan Gruber? Well, the Vermont Attorney General just settled the state's claims for fraud against Jonathan Gruber, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology professor who was the mastermind and architect for Obamacare. Under terms of the settlement, Gruber will no longer work as a taxpayer-funded economic consultant for the state's health care system in Vermont. And he will not seek any more money to be paid from the state of Vermont, even though he claims they owe him money. For its part under the agreement, Vermont Attorney General will not pursue legal action under the Vermont Civil False Claims Act. In other words, Gruber was billing them for money he was not owed. Now, that's the person that created Obamacare. Officials in Vermont had hired Gruber as an economic consultant to assess, examine, and provide economic models for a now abandoned plan to roll out a single-payer health care system across their small state. It wouldn't work. So Gruber is dishonest. We knew that, right? You saw him on that film clip on YouTube. The investigators concluded that Gruber sent 2 invoices and possibly more, falsely charging the state and its taxpayers for work which was never actually completed by Gruber or of any of his co-workers. Under the terms Gruber's consulting contract, he was supposed to receive up to $400,000 for his policy advice. Gruber, of course, says he didn't do anything wrong. Then this week, we have the FBI investigating San Diego area Congressman Duncan Hunter, Republican. Republicans, folks, aren't any different than them Democrats. They're sinners, and if they don't get a control on their gnarly side, they're going to go sideways. This is unbelievable. According to the ethics report released, Hunter may have converted tens of thousands of dollars of campaign funds. Now, I want you to hold this thought. These people want us to not hold them accountable, not have any oversight committees, Just trust us, Sabufka says. We're good people. We're your neighbors. We would never do anything wrong. Hunter may have converted tens of thousands of dollars of campaign funds from his congressional campaign. Now, when I read this, I thought of Ricky, the Scamayoa, mayor of Marysville, getting 2 $5,000 checks from people related to the marijuana industry. And I wonder if he bought that new Cadillac he's got with that money. Don't know myself. Don't know whether anybody's even interested in looking. But if he did, that's illegal. That's just what Hunter's doing. Duncan Hunter. He spent his campaign funds for family travel, flights, utilities, health care, school uniforms, tuition, jewelry, groceries, and other goods, services, and expenses. The spending issues reach back over a year to when the Federal Election Commission, hold that thought, Mr. Scamayoa, first questioned Hunter for using campaign funds to pay for video games, about $1,400 worth of video games on 68 different occasions. He blamed it. This is so amazing. Duncan Hunter blamed this on his son. Now, how in the world does a congressman who's supposed to be managing funds, how does his son charge his video games on his dad's credit card? What kind of family man is this? Since this time, Hunter reimbursed his campaign $62,000 in payments for things like oral surgery, a family trip to Italy. How about Disneyland? And said he's doing a full review of all his campaign spending. Well, thank you, Jesus. Guy, he had a spiritual epiphany. Hunter's staff also told the Riverside Press Enterprise in January that he used campaign funds to pay the cost of flying the family rabbit. Let me just say that again. You may have missed that. They have a family rabbit, and they wanted to fly the family rabbit, and so he bought a seat for the rabbit and flew him. It cost $600, but it didn't cost him a nickel. The executive director of Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington, a guy named Noah Bookbinder, called Hunter's situation the most egregious congressional spending scandal since the former Representative Aaron Schock, Republican from Illinois, another dirty dog, He was indicted last year for theft of government funds, fraud, making false statements, and filing false tax returns. Charges that stem from using house and campaign funds to support a lavish lifestyle. He pleaded not guilty. Well, good for him. Do you remember former Representative Jesse Jackson, Democrat from Illinois? He was sentenced 30 months in prison in 2013 for spending $750,000. Remember all the stuff he bought? Fur coats, jewelry, watches. And then these guys local, these people have the gall to dismiss a citizens oversight committee and then claim that they weren't showing up, that the they're wasn't showing up after they canned a couple of them. One they pressured to leave, and one they canned. And then they say, oh, well, they're not showing up after you got rid of them. And, of course, they know that you're not going to pay attention to that, right? You out there in Sutter County, you think, oh, well, you know, these people are just, you ever been on a committee? I have, when people don't show up. They're supposed to show up? Yeah. I checked it out. I called the people yesterday. I said, what's up with you guys not showing up? They said, Lou, they fired me. And the other gal, they pressured to quit. They harassed her till she quit. Sabufka did. Sutter Buttes. Isn't this unbelievable? I want to make somehow here. I got some information. I got an email where Darren Gale from the city of Yuba City is wanting to correct me. So I'm gonna help him correct me here. Okay, I'm looking. I got a couple emails. All right, I believe. So Darren Gale said, I said last week that there was okay. This is the email. An email was sent by Darren Gale to a citizen in Sutter County that said, during the first hour of Live with Lou this morning, during the discussion of Sabufka and KDAC, Lou talked about $80,000 being spent for a junket, a trip to Washington to lobby for better health and better flood insurance. But Darren Gale said it wasn't for that. It was $80,000 for a lobbyist for FEMA designation. Now, I'm not sure what all that means, but then other people got involved, and they said this. The $80,000 that was finally dropped after we protested, the KDAC people protested because it wasn't actually, it didn't have anything to do with building levees. They're going to take levee money that was supposed to make our levee safe and go back and spend it on a trip to Washington. So the KDAC people said the money was to hire a lobbyist and pay for some locals to fly to Washington, D.C. And that lobbyist was associated with the independent employees, supposedly, that we had starting up Sabufka, including James Gallagher, who eventually found other funding. Now, James Gallagher is our assemblyman. Now, I thought with all the money James is making down there, he could afford to fly himself back there on his own salary or his per diem money. The trips taken back to Washington, D.C. by Mike Anamini every year include a private attorney paid for by Sabufka, and several times the accountant is gone. So anyway, I was almost right. In other words, it was to send people back there, and it was also to hire a lobbyist. So we're going to take a break, and I'm going to tell a little bit more about the KDAC stuff and the craziness that's going on in Sutter County.
To do good in this world, you must work for it and even fight for it. I'm Randy Thomason with your SaveCalifornia.com Minute. If there's anything moral conservatives must learn, it's that freedom is not free. Forces of evil always want to steal, kill, and destroy, and it's up to us to fight for and defend what's good, right, and true. And once we realize this principle, you and I need to look for ways that we can defend and take territory that's been stolen from us. You name the issue: life, family, liberty, money, property. To the victor go the spoils. You must fight for your constitutional rights. Fight for your family. Fight for what's right in God's sight. You can make a difference. Visit SaveCalifornia.com today and see how. SaveCalifornia.com, fighting the good fight for your values in California.
The United Nations Millennium Development Goals, the MDGs, were a tremendous success. So now we need more big projects like that. Sustainable development goals financed by massive foreign aid. Dead wrong. The improvement when it comes to poverty, child mortality and schooling did not come in gift boxes from rich countries. It was homegrown. One study tried to find out the direct effect of the MDG goals by looking at how the indicators improved before September 2000 and after September 2000 when they were agreed upon. And it turned out that most of these indicators did not experience an acceleration after 2000. The improvement that took place had already begun in the same way between 1990 and 2000. Instead, most of this was the result of economic growth and local step-by-step improvements. Some of the countries that made the most progress, like China, didn't receive any foreign aid, and they didn't care much about the Millennium Development Goals. So, for those who believe that development can only come from the top and from abroad, this must be the immaculate conception of progress.
All right. Lou Benninger here. We're back. We're halfway through today. I can't take hardly any more pressure. Here with Leon, Robert E. Leon Lampkin, heading to Arkansas. When they hear his name's Lee, he's not going to be able to get a job, and he's going to have to come back up here. We'll help him out in California. We're talking about the Sutter Butte Flood Control Agency, which is just a typical example of government agreeing to what the people want, and as soon as they're looking the other way, they change their mind and jerk the carpet right out of the whole process. So Sutter Butte Flood Control Agency was created to build miles and miles and miles of new levee from Butte County, from inside Butte County all the way down through Sutter County. And so Butte County property owners and Sutter County property owners were assessed a lot of money every year for up to 33 years. That's why property owners should be concerned. Number one, they're giving money to this agency or to repay this agency for bonds for 33 years. That property is going to be encumbered, even if the people die and it goes to the next people. Number two is that in the rebuilding of these levees, there's manipulation going on how much land they're taking from landowners. So to get this measure passed by the voters, the Sutter County Taxpayers Association said, hey, we won't support this unless there is a Citizen Assessment District Advisory Committee to be the citizens' watchdog over how this committee is run and how the money is spent, et cetera, et cetera. An agreement was made to do that, and the whole thing passed, and off we went to building levees. And then when the rubber meets the road, it's kind of like you get married, you date a little bit, then you get married and said, whoa, I didn't know this is what I bargained for. So when the KDAC people started questioning things like $80,000 to fly some people, including an assemblyman that's overpaid, back to Washington, they thought, hey, this money was supposed to be paid for move some earth around and build some slurry walls and build a levee, not go back and lobby all the time. Find some other money to do that. There were other issues. So there's been a number of things that are issues. Now, you may think, oh, Lou, I don't want to get into all the weeds on this, but I just want to give you the sense of this is how the government routinely screws over the population. So while they argue in the paper, they make it sound like, oh, these are flaky people that were on this advisory committee. They weren't flaky. In fact, their lack of flakiness got them fired. If they were flaky, they would still be on there because they were effective and calling this Sabufka board to question and calling them to answer certain things. They got a bean up the nose of Sabufka. So basically, two KDAC members, two key members, the president, Elaine Miles, and the secretary, Roberta Fletcher, were either removed or forced off the committee using false accusations, according to the ladies. They were very active, and they were key people they were key shakers and movers on the committee. So when they were removed, they were never replaced. It says here, after not attending the required number of meetings, in other words, there are, when organizations are put together or committees, there are rules, like how you, just like in trauma intervention, we have rules on how you become a trauma intervention volunteer and how you stay a volunteer and how you leave. And there are same rules when you come in and out of committees or boards or councils, right? So John Munger, this is interesting. Follow me on this. John Munger was brought in to, quote unquote, volunteer to be the chairperson, even though it was a violation of the Constitution of the KDAC because he hadn't been to enough meetings. So they falsely elected him and improperly noticed the meeting in June of 2016. John has a conflict of interest. You wonder, well, I don't even know this guy. What do you mean, Lou? And I say, okay, here we go. The Sutter Butte Flood Control Agency has a number of members. Some are politicians, some are from other committees or other agencies. One of the members is Larry Munger. Do you notice the same last name? Larry Munger is the father of John Munger. So now we have a son on a committee that's supposed to be making sure his dad doesn't cheat. You think he's going to call his dad on something? I doubt it. So Larry Munger, at that time, was the chairman of the Sutter Butte Flood Control Agency Board and on the Sutter County Supervisors. Isn't that interesting? Now, there's also a second connection. So we got John he's a watchdog on his dad, over his dad. And John is also employed by Al Montana, who is a longtime member of Levee District 1 board. And Levee District 1 has two members on the Sutter Butte Flood Control Agency board. Now, okay, here we go. Levee District 1 has two members on that Sabufka board. Plus, we got Mr. Montana, who's a buddy and does what Al Montana, we got Mr. Munger, who does what Al Montana wants. Plus, we got the son who works for Montana and also now is on the KDAC board, who is supposed to be overseeing the father. And his boss's representings, you get it? Montana employs John Munger. Do you think he's going to oversee and correct Mr. Montana's appointees on the Sabufka board or his father? You really think that's going to happen? I doubt it. Once John Munger was installed as president or chairman of the oversight panel called KDAC, he immediately wanted to move the meetings to every 6 months, basically shutting down the whole operation. They begin to stack the KDAC committee with people who are loyal to agencies on the Sabufka board. How is that an oversight committee if they're all loyal to those groups instead of independent operators? Public relations person Kim Floyd, I used to think it was Ken Floyd, but I get confused on genders these days. Public relations person Kim Floyd unilaterally moved the KDAC meetings from Wednesday to Monday despite information from several committee members that they would not be able to attend on Mondays. Now, listen, folks. This is a typical move of government. Recently, the Yuba County Board of Supervisors reduced the number of meetings they have to 2 meetings a month, and they're in the morning. I don't know how many of you can afford to drop what you're doing in the morning and run over to a supervisor's meeting for a few hours. I cannot. And I'm pretty much on my own clock nowadays, but I'm too busy to do that during the day because that's when everybody else is working. That's when you can get a hold of them. So if these people that are paid to do this work, they're getting paid to sit and eat a sandwich and look at you. But if you're volunteering on this KDAC, on this advisory committee, and you guys up in Butte County, you're a part of this, so you need to pay attention to what's going on here because you're going to get jacked around by this operation. Moving a meeting to where people can't attend is a problem. Anyway, Sabufka says it costs too much to have this advisory board. Well, that's just too bad. Let's have a full disclosure of all the salaries and look at all the costs and see if other costs haven't gone up from what they were projected to be. The KDAC also questioned illegal moves like allowing Mike Inamini to have his pay come out of the city of Yuba City so he wouldn't be charged Social Security, and other people to come out of the Sabufka. I was told that that's illegal. There was no vote on that, and you can't just willy-nilly change things around. There are numerous other things that the KDAC committee found wrong with Sabufka. For instance, it's amazing to me how government violates repeatedly not Robert's Rules of Order, but the Brown Act, which tells you how you have to post and inform people of what's going on agendas. And the KDAC people claim the Sabufka management has not properly noticed the public to tell them what's going on. So lately, the pitch from Sabufka, after there's been a lot of hell raised by people saying, hey, you're breaking your promise to us, they said, well, we're actually going to be more engaged with the public. We're eliminating KDAC. We're going to dial it back, but we're actually going to spend more money and more time. After they complained about money spent on KDAC, they said, well, actually, we can handle this ourselves. That's like the wolf protecting the chicken coop. What these people don't, they think, hey, you can trust us, right? That's like the drug addict saying you can trust me with all the dope, right? I'll hold your dope and mine, and it'll be safe with me. Honestly, people, Sabufka says, we're not doing away with the citizen input and involvement. In fact, we're trying to expand it beyond a small group that was KDAC. Well, they shrunk the group by canning them and pressuring them to leave because they didn't like what Sabufka was doing, exactly what the citizens asked them to do. It's interesting to me, when Robert Stark questioned the Board of Supervisors, Larry Combs, and the department heads, giving themselves a 35% retirement increase, all of a sudden Stark was the enemy. Do you see any semblance here? Resemblance? Similarity? Kim Floyd says, we'll do frequent community meetings at different locations and times. Oh, now we're going to be flexible in the times. Now that we get rid of KDAC, we're going to be like Mr. Flexible. We're going to have them at 7 o'clock at night and 5:30, all these times. Because, by the way, we just realized people work for a living. She says, and there was literally nothing shared with KDAC that wasn't discussed openly in Sabufka board meetings. Honestly, people, this is so much BS that we'll see how it shakes down. What I know, if you don't do anything about it, if you don't call to complain, if you don't show up and say this is wrong, we want it back the way it was, it's not going to go your way. All right. Enough on that. Hey, I just noticed this morning I got up, and on the internet, they're busting. They just picked up a ton of marijuana up there in Loma Rica. That's the second Loma Rica bust in a week, and things are popping in the hills. Now, they claim there's over 1,000 grows up there. They hit 2 or 3 spots, I think 3 spots, and they somebody got word that they were coming, so they pulled up their marijuana and they hid out somewhere. So more than 1,500 marijuana plants and close to $20,000 currency. I wonder who gets to keep that money. I wonder if I'm doing a tip fundraiser, trauma intervention. I wonder if they'll maybe figure out a way to justify me getting some of that money. Whoa, $20,000 in currency, drug money as they call it. They were seized following a search of illegal marijuana cultivation up there in Loma Rica. Well, let's see. Now, are these some local people that were going to Marysville High School or Yuba City High School? No. We got Zong Wang, 58. He was up there taking care of the place, one of the places. They put him in jail. And he's believed to have been staying at the property. He had a medical marijuana recommendation. And one of these guys said they did it because you can just make a lot of money at it. I thought, well, hey, why didn't I think of this? So anyway, they arrested him. They also, who else did they arrest? They arrested more than that guy. They arrested a couple other guys, and they were from out of the area. And anyway, I can't see where their names right now. But anyway, they were all out of the area. So what's happening is all of these folks that they're arresting, they aren't from here, but they're coming up here to do their bidding and make their money. So there you have it. All right. So we'll see. I don't know how we're doing this. I haven't talked to the sheriff about this, about all of a sudden how we're getting all this time to go up and arrest all these people, because it didn't seem like we were doing much of it before. And one of the things that's similar to this bust with the rest of them is that people are turning folks in. Oh, here we go. I was maybe looking at the wrong one. I'm getting 2 busts going on here at the same time. So here's the guys. Here's the guys that got arrested. Nay Fong Saturn and Sing John's Jeffrey Seichow and Zach Sin Saifon. I wonder if those guys are Thai guys. Those are the 3 guys on this. I got two arrests complicated here. So anyway, they went up and they found 2 locations within just a few hundred feet from each other, and up near Bullard's Bar Dam and LaPorte Road in Challenge. And they collected a ton or so of marijuana. Unbelievable. Well, good for you. And that's a couple arrests or raids up in the Bullard's Bar area. And I think it was this article where one of the guys said they do it because there's just so much money in it. You know, why hadn't I thought of that? 3 subjects were there when we arrived. Their property was backed up against a stream. That's a bad sign. Or state waterway. They indicated they were hoping to sell the product to a dispensary. They were booked into Yuba County Jail. The fellow's statement to Mr. Nelson with Net 5 was, it's too easy to make a lot of money making marijuana. Well, there you have it. So I'm sure Mr. Weckman, Buck Weckman, with the fact people, was very, very happy. But things are changing in Yuba County. I don't know whether they're going to be able to sustain this pursuit, a weekly pursuit of folks up there. But things are happening, and they're hauling tons of marijuana out of those hills. But I think they're just scratching the surface, because some of the spots that we showed in the Territorial Dispatch haven't been caught up with yet. Like the 429 acres. I had an attorney, I'll give him a pitch. The attorney, let's see, what's his name? Courtney McAllister. I think he ran for judge. He called me up and he said, hey, you're got everything all wrong. You know, like people always say to me, you didn't do your research, your facts are wrong, but nobody ever calls me up and explains what the facts are, right? So he said, the people you have listed at this 429 acres that used to be the Middlebrook place are incorrect. It's not the Bates people. And I said, well, that's what it says at the county recorder's office. Well, it's not true. I said, well, what is true? Well, I can't tell you what's true. I said, what do you mean? Well, you know, they sold it to somebody else, but it's not properly recorded because it's a contract of sale. I said, well, yeah, okay, fine. Who is it? Oh, well, I can't tell you. I said, oh, I got you now. So it's recorded, and the taxes are being paid under the 4 Bates people. 429 acres with greenhouses all over the place, four wells drilled, buildings all over the place, no permits taken, right? But they claim, well, we really aren't doing all that. But Terry Hansen down there at the county clerk's office, that's who she has listed. And so, Mr., you know, I'm a dropout. I'm not that smart. So Courtney McAllister, who he was going to be a judge if we had elected him, he says, where'd you see this? I said, county clerk's office, and I Googled it. I saw it on the internet. He said, where'd you Google it? I said, honestly, Google it yourself. Why don't you just do some of your own research? You'll find it really easy. If I could find it, anybody can find it. I'm not a good researcher at all. So the Yuba County Sheriff's Department and Net 5 hasn't even gotten over there to that 429 acres that's loaded with marijuana. There's lots of places they haven't touched, but it looks like they're getting after it. Now, let me just say this. This is unbelievable. Did you see the article, the editorial by Randy Fletcher, who is the supervisor for the 5th District in Yuba County, where all the marijuana is being grown? Big old long article from Randy. August 23rd, Wednesday, Appeal Democrat. It's time to come together and take action on pot. I just thought, what did he do? Just wake up yesterday? He's the guy that said it's safe in the foothills. I thought, oh, brother, maybe for you. But you read this article, down. Oh, we're going to get them. We're going to get them. Rah, 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 rah. We're all working together. Thank you, Jesus. We're going to pray. We're going to work. We're going to get money. And then finally, here was the pitch. And it's funny, I walked into a business down on D Street in Marysville, and the owner of the business at Copyprint, Brenda Robbins, says, you see what Randy wrote? And you see what he wants? And she and I saw the same thing. You get all the way down here. He wrote about 800 words here. He says, we need you to support increased funding for law enforcement. Do I hear 1% sales tax increase? Now, there's no discussion ever in government about downsizing, about laying off people in that department to fund more people over in this department, or Randy Fletcher and his 4 fellow supervisors get about $80,000 a year in pay and benefits. What if they all took a haircut and they maybe got $40,000? That would be $200,000 a year that we could give to the Sheriff's Department and Sheriff Durfer to hire more fellows and ladies to go up there and arrest these people that are doing illegal activity. Now, we could, by just going, now, that's a lot of money. These people, like Randy, he has an insurance business. Andy Vasquez has a car service operation, equipment operation. Doug Lofton, he's retired. He gets a retirement check. Why couldn't they take 50% off and give that money to Sheriff's Department? Why don't we cut welfare? Some of the welfare workers. Why don't we cut a lot of these other areas and give the money to the Sheriff's Department? Why don't we do that? Why do you put in here, we need you to support increased funding? What do you mean? You mean the only thing that can mean is we're going to pay more taxes. Why would I need to support Randy's decision to move money from one part of the budget to another part of the budget? He never asked my support for moving money from Department A to Department B. He never asked that. He didn't ask my support when they got rid of the medical workers and subcontracted it out to another medical operation. So all this can mean is we want you to add 1% sales tax and have 8.5% sales tax. That's what this is all about right here. We need you to, then he says, we need you to start reporting every outdoor grow you see. Come on, man, that is BS. People have been calling. You know, Kevin Mallon told me not many people are calling. You know what I found out from talking to people in the hills? They said there is no reason to call because nobody does anything. It doesn't amount to anything. Why waste your time? Either it's not that they don't care maybe, but they just whatever reason they don't do anything, whether it's not enough people, it's too dangerous for code enforcement. What is it? Gangs, dogs, and gates. GDG. Gangs, dogs, and gates. Or no, I'm sorry, not gangs. Guns. It's GDG. Guns, dog, and gates. So, are you kidding me? They haven't been responding to the places that have been called in on. Now they are. But honestly, there's so much fluff in this. There's some good stuff, but the whole point is to prep you to hit you up for 1%. Why can't government ever change their spending priorities? In a family household, that's what we do. We don't have enough money for something, a high priority thing. We take money out of another area of our life, right? You cut over there to fund over here. They can do that. They just don't want to do that. So we're going to, let's see, where are we? Are we about 11 o'clock? So we got one more hour to go. And that's it. But we're just going to do the best we can. We'll be right back. Hang in there if you want to.
Like a lot of people, I love to smoke. But my friends and family always make me go outside to do it. So that's why I now use e-meth. It's crystal meth, but electronic. So it produces vapor instead of smoke. And that means I can ride the ice pony anywhere I want.
Smoking is a social thing for me. Without my meth pipe, I don't know what to do with my hands. But now I do know what to do with them. Smoke meth. It's good.
Thanks to e-meth, now I don't even need to leave the bar to get my sweet shabu shabu. Mama can smoke that chunky white crunch anywhere. At the office, at the grocery store, in a bathtub in the middle of the road. Or face down in a big old tire.
E-meth is healthier because it doesn't contain antifreeze. But it still has that great meth taste.
E-meth lets me get totally gacked up on whoop chicken without yellowing my teeth. See? Perfectly white. What? Hello? This is he.
Thanks to E-meth, I can now even smoke inside my favorite restaurant.
Excuse me, sir. You can't smoke meth in here.
It's okay. It's electronic.
I don't care. You in my living room and you naked.
E-meth is not for everyone. Talk to your doctor if you experience body rot, face melt, painful death, or fatigue.
E-meth. You know it's good because it's blue.
Welcome back. You're listening to Live with Lou. We're into our third hour of the day and the final hour. And if you're listening, we're happy you're listening. Give a shout out to my chicken lady over there on Maple Street in Marysville, who's been fighting a chicken battle in the city of Marysville, down on the 600 block of Maple. Nobody wants to claim these chickens, but they say there's 30 to 40 chickens running crazy around that area and causing problems. And I think somebody just ought to get a little 410 shotgun out there and just take care of some and have some free chicken dinner. So if you want a chicken for your yard, or you want get some chickens to raise up, maybe you're out in the country and you just don't have any money for them, just go down there at on Maple Street. That's just up from the Veterans Park there in Marysville, right off 6th Street. Maple comes right into 6th between H and G. And just capture you some chickens and haul them back home, and you'll be in good business. City Council doesn't seem to be able to solve it. And I thought Marysville was a no chicken zone. But I learned late last night, I was having a discussion with Stephanie McKenzie from the City Council, and she looked it up. She said, you can have some chickens. I don't know, I can't remember how many she told me I could have. But I got too many things just taking care of my own self, let it keep a chicken alive. So I think the chicken would get upset with me anyway. I got enough problems. So I want to talk to you for a second about this. See if this doesn't make sense to me. You know, with government, if you have any money laying around, they want it. It wants it. Because they don't like you to spend your own money. They want you to give your money to them, and they spend it for you because they're smarter than you. They don't think you're very smart. So hold on to this thought. Do you ever get behind a motorhome, and then you see that bumper sticker that it says, "This is my children's inheritance." You know, one of those big motorhomes that probably costs $50,000 or something. You see a sticker on the back, "This is my children's inheritance." You know that the government actually encourages us to waste money. If you waste your money and die broke and say you got $1 million in the bank and you die broke, spending your money on stupid stuff, flying, just excesses of life, right? They encourage that because if you die and there's money left over and you leave it to your children, they tax that. Whatever you tax, that's a punishment. Tax is a punishment, just like on cigarettes. I just brought back some cigarettes from Vietnam. I spent about 90 cents a pack for them. Same stuff you can buy here. And they tell me here, what are they, $8 or $9 a pack? Do you know what they are? $4. $4 a pack. You can get them for $4 a pack. Really? $5. Some places it's even more. Robert E. Leon says $4 or $5 a pack. But some places it's even double that. So in other words, they're punishing you for smoking cigarettes, but in punishing you, they keep your money. Anytime they want to get at you, they come up with a crisis or a reason to take your money, then they take it and spend it on something stupid. So if you spend your money wildly, no tax. But if you save your money and you conserve and you're a good manager, good steward of your finances, so you live a good life and then you have money left over. You know, here's the deal. The Bible encourages you to leave an inheritance for your children. But the government of the United States is against or antichrist or against the Bible, and they said, if you leave money for your kids, we're going to tax that. Did you know that? They call it an estate tax. So the estate tax encourages you to blow your stash. So there's some people that feel that death should not be a taxable event. Hold that thought. And that the estate tax should be repealed. In other words, somebody along the line, some Democrat, maybe some Republicans too, like Chad Mays, decided that you work your rear off all your life. You work, you build, you work, you save, you work, you build, you work, you save, and you build yourself a house and some investments and some mutual funds and some savings, etc., etc. And then for working really hard and being a good manager of your money, the government then comes in and says, very good, now we'll take a lot of it. If you smoke crack, do heroin, waste all your money, no tax. Does that seem wrong to you? That seems wrong to me. So the current federal death tax comes into play when an estate is valued at over $5.49 million. And then 40% of anything over that is taken. Because the government thinks it's unfair that you have all that money. And your people, your own people, your kids, even though the Bible says that you're a wise person and a good person if you provide for your children. But the government says, no, we're going to take that money. So it says it doesn't take long in California for an estate to get to that size. It's true, isn't it? How expensive property's expensive here. Because when real property and equipment's involved, in other words, they add up all your assets, money and stuff, cars, equipment. So farmers, think of you if a farmer, how fast you can get up to that money. You look at those big tractors and trucks and, tractor trailer rigs and harvesters. Farmers are particularly hard hit. So you die as a farmer and you want to leave the farm to your son. And it's worth $20 million. Easily. You could get over that easily. The rice harvesters right now, we're getting ready to harvest rice in a couple months. I was just talking to the rice people this weekend, or yesterday, end of the week. And they got rice harvesters, bank out wagons, tractors, scrapers, tillers, all kinds of stuff. Millions and millions of dollars. So farmers then, 40% over that $5.4 million goes to the government. It destroys the family farm. So there's recently been a discussion amongst the Trump people to get rid of the estate tax. Isn't that exciting? So just when you think, though, it might happen, some of you out there may have an estate worth over $5 million. That's not hard, actually. So just when you thought that the federal government was going to get rid of this tax, State Senator Scott Wiener, I didn't know we had more than one Wiener. I thought we just had old Anthony back there in New York who liked to send shots of his crotch all around the world. But now we got Scott Wiener. I wonder if he does the same thing. I wonder if it runs in the family. And it's interesting that Scott Wiener is from San Francisco, who has a great interest in wieners. Well, anyway, he introduced a bill that would put the creation of a California, they call it an equal tax. That makes us all equal. In other words, if I'm really sacrifice a lot and save money, that they'll take it away and give it to somebody else that didn't work very hard and screwed off. Smoke crack or crank. So Scott Wiener, he wants to create a tax to replace the estate tax and just tax Californians. And he's going to put that on the ballot if the federal tax is eliminated. Now, many of you Californians out there listening to me are going to vote for that because you're too stupid to figure out what's going on. You're going to vote to break your own nose. So it's supposed to go to the voters because two initiatives passed in 1982 prohibit an estate tax in California. And that can only be changed by voters. But I'm telling you, every time these things go before the voters, I break out in a sweat. Death should not be a taxable event. If you work to obey the Lord, you shouldn't get punished by the government, right? It's like in Sutter County, they punish you if you're faithful to your wife or your husband. You're actually cool if you go have sex with your friend's wife. You're cool. There's a bunch of people, you know, in key places in Sutter County government that think it's cool to have sex with multiple partners. You like that idea? I think that's bad for society. Oh, boy. It's complicated out there, people. It's really complicated. I had some notes here. Let's see. Oh, I wanted to mention this. Let me give you a shout out. The Sutter County Republican Party is having a dinner, and it's a fundraiser, but I want to encourage you to go because you ought to support these people. And it's a couple of good speakers. One is Sam Paredes, P-A-R-E-D-E-S, Paredes, board member of the Gun Owners of California. And the second person, I love to read his articles. And his name, he was really helpful to us when we were fighting Cal Water up here in Marysville. John Coupal, C-O-U-P-A-L, Coupal. He's president of the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association. John and Sam are both going to be here for the Sutter County Republican Committee's Freedom Dinner on Wednesday, August 30. That's awesome. One is there have been some favorable rulings regarding violation of the Second Amendment by the state and federal government. Judges have come down saying, knock it off. So Sam Paredes should have some really interesting things to say for the gun owners. And John Coupal always is a wealth of information because he knows what's shaken down with the taxes, right? And trying to protect Prop 13, our lower, keep our property taxes lower. But John is very knowledgeable. I may have interviewed John one day on the show here, or one of my pinch hitters it did. Anyway, the dinner is coming up on Wednesday, August 30 at 6 o'clock is a social hour. That means you can drink cocktails if you're into that. Or you can just slide in there screeching tires at 7 for dinner. And the tickets are $35. That's not really that much, you know, when you're supporting a good cause. I notice when I go out to eat at a restaurant, which I do quite a bit, things are a little expensive, right? So also, the cool thing is, I'd like to win this, a 9mm handgun. That's what I need. I need a handgun. In fact, the Secret Service told me I should watch my back after they came and investigated me for threatening the president, which I never did do. Just somebody threw me under the bus. But I could use a 9mm handgun and a sawed-off shotgun I could use too. So anyway, the Central Committee, they're selling tickets for the 9mm handgun and a .22 caliber rifle. And the cool thing is you can buy the tickets. So for $5, you might win yourself a handgun or a rifle. I think I'm going to buy some. Actually, you can get 5 tickets for $20 and get a discount, right? That's $4 a ticket if you did your math right. So each ticket is an entry for the drawing on each gun. So I guess you get in on both guns. You don't need to be there to win on the gun raffle. So buy some tickets, and you might just be home just snoozing, and all of a sudden realize you're the winner of a handgun, and you can shoot the next guy that busts in your house. That would be interesting. So let's see. If you want to get in on these tickets, you can buy the $35 dinner ticket, or you could just say, can't make it to the dinner, but I want to win that handgun or that rifle. So you can call Liz Cervantes, owner of and manager of the Cervantes Tomato Cartel. Her number is 674-3097. 674-3097. Or Elaine Miles. She is a retired auditor for the state of California who the Sutter Butte Flood Control Agency fired as the president of the advisory board to oversee them because she knows more than they did and was cleaning their clock. So Elaine Miles is at 671-7916. 671-7916. So you can buy your tickets for the dinner. Just go to the dinner or buy the tickets. Support these people. They're actually doing good stuff. And go win a gun. I'm going to buy some of those tickets. I never win, but you never know. I may have a big turnaround, and I may win myself a handgun, and then I can practice on the next guy trying to give me a hard time. Okay. Let's see. Let me read this to you. This is a write-up. This will give you an idea of the value of an oversight board called KDAC, right? These are comments that were read and presented to the Sutter Butte Flood Control Agency on August 10th, 2016. So if you think, oh, they weren't doing anything, nobody was showing up to the meetings. Well, this was back when people were showing up because they weren't canned. So it says here, I come before you today to ask you, board members, who do you really represent? Do you represent and support the taxpayers, citizens, and property owners who are paying for this project? Or do you represent the Sabufka staff, its contractors, and your own interests? You have been advised on numerous occasions of at least one Sabufka contract employee consistently lying to this board. Now that's a strong accusation. Wonder how that turned out. You've also been advised of 2 Brown Act violations by that same contract employee. I think they're talking about Kim Floyd, or it's Ken. I don't know which it is, Ken or Kim. But that same contract employee, and numerous times of inappropriate manipulations to control the KDAC committee by members of this board or member agencies. All of you were elected or appointed to represent the interests of the citizens, the taxpayers, and the property owners. 30,000 of them, by the way. You instead are attacking the messengers, that be the people that got canned off this KDAC board. You instead are attacking the messengers who bring serious concerns to you. You do not investigate. You do not talk to we lowly citizens about these issues. Instead, you blindly follow staff's recommendations and ignore the public. I and many others are thoroughly disgusted by your lack of interest in getting to the truth. I am also concerned about a board member's statement at the July Sabufka meeting that the Sutter County Taxpayers Association should be looking into the $19.9 million cost relative to Native American artifacts. We believe that is what your board should be doing, overseeing this project and questioning the appropriateness of staff and contractors' actions. But instead, you do nothing and approve whatever staff recommends, regardless if it is right thing to do or not. Now, someone mentioned to me this week, this is over a $200 million project, and they have spent, according to this person, over $1 million on attorney's fees. Whoa. Is that a lot of money or what? My sister told me when I was a youngster, Lou, you should become an attorney. She was a legal secretary. My sister's 11 years older than me. I said, oh, that just sounds boring being an attorney. I thought, if you make $1 million, that might take the B out of boring. Anyway, there's problems with Sabufka and they are just shoveling the manure right over everybody's face in Sutter County, and they're going to do some token little committee and give you a little sack lunch if she'll show up in the morning or the afternoon or whatever they're going to do it. And you know something? These will be meetings where it's talk. Okay, we'll see you later. No questions, no answers, no like research, no auditing. Anyway, all right. So let's see what else. Hey, I wanted to mention that somebody contacted me. In fact, an old friend of mine from our Marysville water fights contacted me, said, hey, Brenda and I want to buy a table at the dinner coming up at the tip dinner. And I had to write her and said, you know something, we're not having the tip dinner because my caterer, who was Yuba City Fire Department firefighter, quit and went up to Roseburg, Oregon to fight fires. That was my caterer. And then the Catholic Church got intimidated by the Franchise Tax Board and said we couldn't rent out their facility anymore. So we're doing a different type of fundraiser. So if you'd like to get involved in helping tip, you can call me or you can go on our websites. I'm going to give you some information here. But you could call me at 713-1838. That's 530-713-1838. And we're just doing an annual fundraiser, and we're not having a dinner, but we're doing an online auction, or we're also selling tickets here in a little bit you can win a handgun. And but we're going to have an online auction with all kinds of giveaways and gun training be auctioned off, all kinds of stuff. But you can help sponsor tip volunteers. And Robert E. Leon is telling me I got 1 minute. So you can go to youcaring.com/tip and you can give to us. youcaring.com/tip. And you can also go to yubasuttertip.org and get involved in this as well. We'll talk about it more on the back side of this commercial.
Lately, we've all been hearing a lot about so-called white privilege. The idea that white people in America have it much easier because of the color of their skin. It reminded me of an incident that happened a few days ago in the Great Louisiana Swamp. I met a man who had a Confederate battle flag tattooed on his arm right here. It's a beautiful tattoo. We had business dealings, successful, respectful. And after our business was over, I was standing over to the side and alone. And he came over and spoke to me. He looked me right in the eye. He said, I'm not a racist. I'm not prejudiced. I don't have a prejudiced bone in my body. The man with the Confederate tattoo explained to me that his great-great-grandfather fought in the Civil War, and that by wearing this tattoo, he honors his great-great-granddaddy's service. He explained that in all of these generations, his family has never been wealthy. They could never have afforded a slave, even if they had wanted one, which they did not. His family is one of the vast majority, the great majority of American white people who have never owned slaves. Every one of us recognizes wealth privilege. It is a privilege to be wealthy anywhere on planet Earth, no matter who you are or where you are. But wealth privilege is not white privilege. We ought to be ashamed of ourselves. We have let a few black and white people who want to divide us, who want to draw us apart, we've let them place the burden of slavery upon every white person from the north, the south, the east, the west, male or female, old or young, people whose families have never owned slaves, never had anything to do with slavery. We have placed that yoke of slavery, that burden of slavery upon all of them. So much so that to the point where now just plain hard-working Americans feel a need to sometimes defend their whiteness. This is America, free and filled with opportunity. That opportunity is available for each and every one of us. Try it. American privilege.
All right. Well, we're wrapping up things today. We're finishing at noon. And then we've got a sports talk show that's kind of interesting if you like it. Maybe they'll know whether Kaepernick did he get hot? Johnny Radio, did he get picked up by the Raiders? Is that fake news? Fake news. Johnny Radio, he's here today. He's going to be helping these sports guys, and he says it's fake news. He knows everything about football, so I'm going to trust it. Thank you, Jesus, that Kaepernick didn't get hired by the Raiders. Well, I just wanted to mention trauma intervention, if you're familiar with it in Yuba Sutter area. We do about 40 responses a month. We're all volunteers, and we get called by cops and firefighters and the hospital system at Rideout and by Bi-County Ambulance to go out and help family members and friends who are going through a tough time, or when somebody dies or something bad happens to somebody. We just are there to help 24 hours a day. Get there in 20 minutes. We're on it. And we've done over 10,000 calls since December 1994. And not $1 of your tax money has ever gone to help us. We are supported by people that like what we do. And if, it's kind of how it should be, don't you think? If you like us, you support us. If you don't, we'll go by the wayside, and another organization will come along. So far, for 23 years, people have saw fit to give us a little money. And a little money from a number of people gets us by. And so, but let me give you an idea of the impact of our TIP organization. Each year, TIP people invest around 40,000 total hours in service here. And at the national per hour volunteer rate or value, there's a national per volunteer value that's assessed. And this is a couple of years ago. It was $23.56. You think, wow, I don't make that kind of money. Well, when you look at a person that you hire and pay them that, then there's also taxes on that. There's also a manager. There's also a business that's running that operation. So there's a value of the service when a business provides that, right, or a government provides that, of $23.56. When you multiply that out, that's almost $1 million a year that just this local group of TIP people in the Yuba Sutter area, $942,400 contribution to our local quality of life. And so if you like the idea, maybe you've benefited by TIP in the past, whether you're a cop or a firefighter or ambulance medic or maybe a nurse at the hospital. And, maybe you could chip in like the worth of a couple lattes. Like you can go online and you could give us donations starting as low as $10. And you can go to youcaring.com/tip and you can give us $10. Or you could just mail it to us at TIP, P.O. Box 645, Marysville, California, 95901. TIP, P.O. Box 645, Marysville, California, 95901. We're this year, instead of a dinner where we have about 300 people coming and some people buy tables and stuff, instead we're just going out to thousands of people. And if everybody gives us a little bit and some people give us a lot, we'll probably make more money than we did going to all that work with the dinner. So, again, if you want to help us keep doing what we're doing, if you don't, then we won't. And that's simple, and be less stress on me because I'll have one less thing to do with my life. But so far, I've done this for many years, and it's a good service to the community. And so P.O. Box 645 Marysville, or you can go to YouCaring, YOUCaring, one word, .com/tip. I wanted to correct something that I heard on Fox News. I hate Fox News, that we have to put it on here. I'm mandated. I would eliminate all that if I had my choice. But it said the leading killer of U.S. children are car crashes, which is a total lie. The leading killer of U.S. children is abortion. And there's nothing, you can add up all the reasons that kids die. Cancer, right? Being shaken to death, drowning in bathtubs, car crashes, bicycle crashes, poisoning, drinking the stuff underneath the sink, that killing them. Reactions of vaccinations. Add it all up. It does not even come close to the amount of, we're aborting over 4,000 kids a day. So when they go on and give you this baloney, it's just total crap. That car accidents, and so it's a big deal to put your kid in a car seat. I'm not against car seats. I think car seats are a good idea. But the reason for them to say that they're the top killer of kids is deceptive. It's totally deceptive. That's one thing. The other thing I wanted to address before we leave is Singing Johnny. Now, I have known Singing Johnny since he was a youngster, because I'm almost his age. And it says here he's 73, so he's got me by a few years. But I remember Singing Johnny when he was a youngster, because we went to the same school. And he started right out on his motorcycle. And I was a teenager, and he was a 20-something. And he was already washing windows and starting a business. Now, I want to say this in an appropriate way, but I want to make it a point. Pro-abortion people would have aborted Singing Johnny. So all this talk about Singing Johnny, I have never seen in my years here in the Yuba Sutter area. I've lived here all my life. I have never seen such an outpouring of love and kindness and support for any one person as I have seen since Singing Johnny got hurt in this motorcycle crash. And I have no idea what his condition is. I'm just hoping he can recover and live a normal life. But I've been thinking about Singing Johnny. I had a business where we needed windows cleaned, and we hired Singing Johnny wanted to do the windows. I said, absolutely, clean the windows. And he did them for very little money. But he was always a pleasure to deal with, just like everything that everybody's saying about Singing Johnny. You know, like sometimes people praise people at a funeral or something, and you think, you're kidding me. That's the same guy I knew. He's just like, are you kidding? I didn't know that guy. But Singing Johnny, what they're saying about him is all true. He's a great guy, and everybody loves him. Now, let me just say to you that people that are pro-abortion, they want you to abort Down syndrome kids, anybody that isn't exactly perfect, anybody that doesn't fit the mold of going to college and being successful and all that stuff. If you got any limitations or difficulties in your life, or you're dyslexic, or you're a slow person mentally, they would hope. In fact, I just saw where supporters of Planned Parenthood are advocating more black kids be killed by abortion so they'd cut down the black crime rate. Now, I want you to process that and think about it right there. That's some really stupid thinking right there. But Singing Johnny at 73, I want to ask you, do you think that Singing Johnny has brought more joy to people's lives? Or people like Scott Mitnick, the administrator of the county, who gets about $200,000 to $300,000 a year, and went out and hustled placards to other people to pay for advertising for his kids' baseball team. You know, I get sick of people soliciting money from me to pay for their kids' stuff when I didn't have the fun of producing the kid in the first place. My feeling is, if you produced the kid and had the fun of getting it on, why don't you pay for it? You know, it's kind of like I got to pay your way to the movie. So who do you think brought more joy to the world? A PhD or Singing Johnny? Scott Mitnick or Singing Johnny? A Yuba County supervisor or Sutter County supervisor or Singing Johnny? You know, I'm serious about this. When you stop to think of the value of a human being, You know, I just read to our tip volunteers an incredible story. In fact, I should bring it and read it someday. It's by a very bright woman who is a highly educated woman, a medical doctor and a counselor, psychologist, psychiatrist, something like that. And she brought up that when she was young, she thought highly educated people and highly competent people were the most important people in the world. But as she went forward in life, she thought just the opposite. Is that people that could show kindness and joy and bring people joy and lift people's spirits are much more valuable than highly educated people that have lots of initials after their name and certificates on the wall. My hunch, I don't know whether Singing Johnny ever graduated from high school. It really doesn't make a difference, does it? What makes a difference is who he is. Singing Johnny, I don't know that Singing Johnny has ever collected welfare. I think Singing Johnny, if he wanted to, if you don't know Singing Johnny, if you're out there in one of these other counties, Singing Johnny is a guy that rides a motorcycle, has a bucket and squeegees, and washes windows, and he's been doing that for over 50 years and supporting himself. He could today, Singing Johnny would be pressured and recommended to go on Social Security disability. I'm saying this in praise of this fellow who is one of that people are championing today. I'm telling you today, if Singing Johnny was a youngster in school, they would suggest to his parents to put him on Social Security disability. That's how screwed up our society is, or abort him. The Senator Barbara Boxer said, she wished that people could take their baby home and have at least 2 weeks to decide whether or not they wanted to abort the child. In other words, kind of like when they tell you can test drive a mattress for 100 days and then give it back if you don't want that mattress. Heard an ad on the deal the other day. Today, Singing Johnny would likely be aborted or put in a situation where he wouldn't have to work the rest of his life and we would support him. But instead, Singing Johnny, I'm told, owns substantial property today. I don't know whether that's a fact. It's none of my business. Whether he does or not, I don't think he has any needs. He doesn't look skinny to me. He looks fit to me. He looks like he's eating to me. He's had a motorbike. He gets by and he gives people joy in their life. Isn't that great? How many people are in your life that are big shots? They come into the room and you have to recognize them. Assemblyman so-and-so, supervisor so-and-so, city council woman so-and-so. The head of this, the head of that. And if they drop dead tomorrow, you would think, oh, that's sad, and then you would move on. If something happened to you like happened to Singing Johnny, you think you'd make the top article in the Peel Democrat? It's something to think about, what we do with our lives, right? What we pursue in our life. Get an education, become a doctor, become a lawyer, become a this, become a that. You know something? Do you know how much character training, how much focus we put on what kind of person you're going to be? Hardly any in school. Hardly any. Hardly any. Thank God for Singing Johnny. Maybe Singing Johnny early on got a dose of Jesus because he likes to sing gospel songs. I don't know him enough to know if he goes to church. But anyway, I wish him well. And I just, Sarah Palin was mocked for, you remember Sarah Palin mocked because she has a Down syndrome child? How she was mocked? That child will probably bring a lot more joy to a lot of people's lives than all the people that mocked her. Just makes me sick to think about it. Oh, man, there's just a lot going on. Okay. Do you know that about less than a year, well, it's been about 10 months ago. It seems like forever. Do you remember the Mueller protest, a peaceful protest by farmers and ranchers, hunters in Oregon? The refuge place, Mueller, they called it, in Oregon. And the protesters, including the Bundys from Nevada, they were protesting the takeover by the federal government of farmers' lands. In other words, lands that the farmers were getting to use by permit. Some of them have been on those lands for 100 years. You know, the state had their own lands, California, Nevada, but they allowed the federal government to manage some of those lands because the federal government said they would. But the federal government became more and more controlling, and then they had Bureau of Land Management people carrying guns. In fact, some sheriffs have had to tell the Bureau of Land Management to leave their county people alone and to leave those guns at home. But the farmers, you remember the Bundy confrontation over in Nevada, Clark County, Nevada, where they were trying to take over the Bundy's property and under Obama, right? So do you remember the arrests? And they killed they shot up one carload of people, and they arrested a bunch of folks. They killed Robert Lavoy Finicum on January 26th of 2017. They arrested a bunch of people. Some of them just pled guilty. They just gave up and pled guilty. Some have not come to trial yet, but a handful of them went to trial. This is about 8 months ago. And Ammon, however you want to say it, and Ryan Bundy and 5 others were charged with conspiring to impede federal workers from their jobs at Mueller National Wildlife Refuge, which is a lie. They didn't try to block them. Several also were charged with possessing a firearm in a federal facility. They said the reason they carried a firearm was they were afraid the government was going to shoot them. I thought, good thinking. You remember at the Bundy protest in Nevada, they had snipers, government snipers, dialed in on these protesters that were sitting on horses. Well, in Portland, Oregon, in October of this last year, 7 defendants, including the Bundys, were found not guilty on all charges. The jury had no verdict for Ryan Bundy's theft of government property charge even. In other words, they were let go. Well, sort of. As soon as they were said that they were free, this was the Oregon court in Portland, then they were put back in custody of the Bundys to be taken to Nevada. Now, I want you to think about this. You can be a pervert. You can have a ton of marijuana and have a $500,000 bail. You can be a pervert, have a $100,000 or $50,000 bail. You can bail out on almost anything, but these people could not bail out. Did you know that? You think, oh, I just thought political prisoners were like in Venezuela or Russia or China or Vietnam. You know, it's interesting to me how people kind of have shied away from this whole situation with these farmers and ranchers. And they think, oh, they are like squatting on government property. No, they aren't. It's the government that's wrong. And these people could not bail out. Are you with me? This is political prisoners. Said this is an article from back then, despite the acquittal, the Bundys were expected to stand trial again in Nevada early next year, which is this year. Charges stemming from another high-profile standoff with federal agents. Authorities rounding up cattle at their father Cliven Bundy's ranch in 2014 because of unpaid grazing fees released the animals as they faced armed protesters. You remember that? What they don't say here is a lot of those animals were killed or died through the government handling of them. They don't ever bring that up. Dead cows. Lavoy Finicum lost his life. On technical grounds, it said the defendants said they never discussed stopping individual workers from accessing their offices, but merely wanted the land and the buildings. On emotional grounds, Eamon Bundy and other defendants argued that the takeover was an act of civil disobedience against an out-of-control federal government that was crippling the rural West. I want you to think of Black Lives Matter, Occupy Wall Street, all these disruptions, busting up stuff, blocking freeways, lighting cars on fire. You think those people are going to jail with no bail for a year at a time? You think this isn't political persecution? Federal prosecutors took 2 weeks to present their case. Can you imagine? That's 10 days of testimony, finishing with a display of more than 30 guns seized in the standoff. An FBI agent testified that 16,600 live rounds and nearly 1,700 spent casings were found. They lost. The government lost. A jury of their peers said these people were not there to cause a problem. You think, oh my God, they have guns. I want you to, let me give you a clue. Oh, I think I'm going to run out of time to give you a clue. When I lived in East Marysville as a 13, 14-year-old kid, we would get up early in the morning and walk from East Marysville out to the rice fields in Yuba County, north of Marysville, carrying shotguns and fully loaded with all the shotgun shells, and walk right out. And then when we came back with our waterfowl, we would carry guns broad daylight right down Covalod Street in East Marysville, and nobody give us a second thought. You do that today, you'd probably get yourself arrested by the Marysville Police Department. Violation of Second Amendment rights. Hold that thought. We'll be back next week, and you got sports coming next. Hang on.